Hey everyone, so it's 2017 and I have actually moved since the last time I did a home network video. So I wanted to create just an update to how I run my home network. By no means is this a home lab of any sense, just a home network kind of on steroids a little bit. Maybe more than the average person has, but definitely less than the pros have, but it definitely works well for me. I think I'm making the best use of all the machines that I have running. The main points I wanted to cover in this video were, number one, I really wanted to conserve energy, save power. So powering down machines and using the maximum amount of processing power from the few machines that I do have running. And then I also wanted to get this new house set up with Ethernet runs, so hardwiring as much in as possible. So we can go ahead and start with a quick tour. You'll notice that as I back up here, this is just a bare bones rack. Actually got it off Craigslist for about $30, maybe a year or two ago. And then I just started to populate all of our networking gear as we went along. So we can just kind of start from the top and go down. So if we go to the side here, you'll notice there's a security IP camera on the side. We'll talk more about that in a second. But up top, way up there, if I can see up there. So up there is our backup Wi-Fi access point. So if for some reason the power were to go out in the rest of the house, this main rack is actually backed up. It's on backup power, so I could flip on that and we would still have Wi-Fi running off the backup power. And then back there is also the Cox Home Life router that they supply for some of their security system software that they run. So both of those are running. So that backup access point is actually not even running. I just leave it off until the power were to go out, which our power actually has not gone out yet. We've been here for a little under a year. So we do have little tiny blips, so the backup power helps. But as far as like full outages, we haven't had any. So I haven't even had to use that yet, but it's there in case we need it. So as we come down, you'll see there's a 24-port patch panel. The patch panel really helps, especially as you start to hardwire your home. Makes it so you don't have to terminate all of those into the RJ45 ends. You just simply punch them down into the back. So I will show you the back in a second. I'm actually using a mix of punch down and then just female to female connectors to connect the other devices in this rack. So I'm going to skip the Dell unit. That's actually the main unit that we run here for a second. I'll come back up to that. This is the old PF Sense box that we used to run. This machine has been through a few iterations. This was a PF Sense box for a while, and then it was also a FreeNAS box for a while as well. But the problem with this, it's a super old computer. So it was a power hungry machine. Didn't make much sense to run something simple like a NAS or something like PF Sense off of it because it was just taking up so much power. So that was actually retired a while ago. So as far as NASs go, this little machine actually didn't cost that much. I want to say it was about $100, and it's been doing its job quite well over the past year and a half to 2 years that I've had. So this is a QNAP machine. It's one of their silent machines, so it doesn't have a fan in it. It's passive cooling along the top. It's got 2 hard drive bays in there. So I've got 2 4-terabyte Western Digital Reds in there running. Works perfectly well. That's enough storage for me right now. I don't put out too much in terms of videos anymore, so that space is more than enough. And actually for the security system, that is running up on the Dell that we will talk about in a second. So then you got your cable modem. That's provided to me by Cox, and just simply the cable modem that's running down here. So I try to consolidate everything into this one rack to eliminate boxes kind of all over the house. And it'll come down here. This is actually waiting to go into production. This is a PoE switch. So when I get new access points around the house, this will actually be put in so that we can just run them over PoE and get that set up. Don't have the access points yet, but once those go in, there will be 3 around the house that will be in use. This is actually a Kangaroo machine. So these are actually these tiny little CPUs. They're pretty cool. If you can see it there, it's got some connections on the back. You got HDMI, USB 3, USB 2, and then just power. You can actually take this. It's a very portable machine. It comes with Windows on it, but I actually am running Linux on it too. So running Ubuntu on this device, I wasn't using it too much. So before, it was kind of my Windows test machine, and then it became my Linux test machine. And as I stopped using it more and more, I figured I might as well run Bionic. If you guys have heard of that, BIONC. So what that is, it's a pretty much an open source platform that research companies can get onto. So you have SETI at home was a popular one, and basically what it is, it's distributed computing, where you volunteer your computer's resources. If you have computers like this that are sitting around unused, so this computer is actually sitting here doing calculations that will help out certain research projects. So right now it's on the World Community Grid. That's an IBM project doing all sorts of research. So yeah, it just sits there and does those little calculations. It's a very low powered machine, so I don't mind the energy costs of leaving it on and letting it help out with that. So as we move down, this is kind of turned into a storage shelf. This is an old WatchGuard Firebox. I actually used to run pfSense on that before it just got to be too much of a hassle. It was an embedded version. It was hard to update. Every time pfSense wanted an update, I pretty much needed to reflash the memory card, so it wasn't working out too well. So now it's just a shelf. So this is the UPC, and it sits there. It's a CyberPower 1500 VA. So you've got your little options here that you can cycle through and see how much power you're drawing. We can go in and see if I were to lose power. Looks like it can run for about 40 minutes to an hour off this one battery backup. So this backup runs for the entire rack. So everything is plugged into here. So everything is on backup power. And since I have my modem and a backup access point and the router, everything is in here. That means that we would still have internet access for a little bit via Wi-Fi or via hardwire for a little bit if our power went out. So then got some extra hard drives, power and stuff like that. The one thing you guys will notice is I am not good at cable management. If we look to the back, it's okay when you look up towards the top. You got your few power running through that circle. You've got all your data running through that port right there. But as far as cable management, it's kind of a mess as it all runs up to that patch panel and into the switch. So the next thing I kind of want to move into is this Dell Optiplex 790. So I actually picked this up for about $70 off eBay, and I wasn't expecting it to be as big of a workhorse as it is, but this is doing actually everything. I had multiple computers doing different tasks in the network until I got this machine, and now this machine is doing absolutely everything. So let me tell you what all I have running on here. So this is actually running Windows 10, and it's got a Hyper-V virtual machine on it running pfSense. So in the back, I added 2 extra NICs that are just for pfSense. So the Hyper-V pfSense runs great as a virtual machine. It runs in there, doesn't use any CPU at all. So this is my router. So I use pfSense as my firewall and router. So in a virtual machine, this is doing all the routing, and I love pfSense. I won't be able to go away from it. I tried DDWRT for a while, just wasn't powerful enough for what I wanted to do. So this is running pfSense in the virtual machine. So along with Windows 10 then, on the Windows 10 side, not in a virtual machine, this is actually running SightHound. So SightHound is a security camera piece of software. It manages all your IP cameras. It detects motion, and not only does it detect motion, but it actually differentiates between, is this a person or is it just a normal object? So you can customize recording schedules, alerts. So if it's a person, I actually get an alert to my phone on the 5 different cameras that I have spread out around the house. And actually this is one of them. This just provides coverage for the basement and for the rack. So that feeds into SightHound, and it provides a great interface for my security cameras. And then on top of that, this is also running Plex. So this is my Plex server. So in here, actually, there is the operating system is running on an SSD, and then it's also got a 2 terabyte Western Digital red drive. So that red drive is used for storing the VM, the virtual machine for pfSense, and also the video camera footage. Plex runs on this machine, but the actual Plex files, the movies, TV shows, are stored down on the NAS. So, but the Plex server runs up here. One of the new additions to Plex is live TV and DVR. So if we go over here real quick, you'll actually see this, and I don't know how to pronounce the name of the brand. I think it's Hoppage. So this Hoppage tuner, so you'll see it's plugged into coax. This actually runs to my attic into an antenna, and then it just runs to USB into the back of the machine. And what this does is it allows Plex to pull from over-the-air programming and record it to Plex, and you can actually watch it now too. So they have had the DVR feature for a while, so you can always record and set it up as a normal DVR for anything that's over the air, but now you can actually tune into your Plex and watch live TV through that. So it's kind of nice, one little addition. So like I said, so this machine's doing a lot. When you think it's running all of my security camera footage, and all of that is 720p RTSP streams. So that's running 5 of those, doing all of the saving of that, the alerts. So that takes a little bit of processing power. You add on top of that Plex, and then obviously being the pfSense router, and then between the hours of midnight and 5 p.m., so I figure while I'm at work and while I'm sleeping, what this does is it's running MCE Buddy, and MCE Buddy monitors the Plex file folders, and for anything that was pulled over from the antenna, so my antenna puts out MKV files that are huge. So when Plex pulls it down from over the air, it actually pulls it down as an MKV file. It's a huge file. So MCE Buddy takes that between the hours of midnight and 5 and converts it down to an MP4. Saves the Plex machine from having to do any transcoding, especially when I'm watching those recordings on an iOS device. So MP4 can be played natively. It doesn't need to do any transcoding, whereas if it had kept it as an MKV, it has to do that transcoding. So this is doing a lot, especially between 12 and 5. This machine is always running at full tilt. The fan's running all the time because it's doing all of that media conversion for all of the shows that it recorded during the day and converts them over to a good file format. So a great machine. Like I said, this Dell Optiplex 790. So what this is running a quad-core i5. I think it's the i5 2400. So a quad-core i5 has got 8 gigs of RAM, and like I said, 1 SSD to run the operating system, and then the 2 terabyte drive for the storage. So the one task that I am working on now that I'm just kind of diving into is finishing up the wiring throughout the house. So you'll notice as I go up, the reason that the server rack is right here is because this is where all of our main lines come down. So all of our coax cables for our cable, so our Ethernet line that was running down here, all of our phone lines, the old phone lines that I've been starting to tear out, run all through here. But what I did was, so this actually goes all the way to the attic. So I'm in the basement, we live in a ranch style home, so this runs all the way to the attic. But the area where it's coming through is super tight already. It's packed with cords and there was no more room. So what I did was, if you'll notice these few cords, I think there's about 5 of them now, running them over, they run up into the ceiling. And then we will turn on the light here. So they come through the wall, through the ceiling, and I need to tighten them up. There's a little bit of slack on this side. But what I did was I installed a PVC pipe, so basically a little conduit, that runs up. It runs through the corner of a closet. You don't even see it, so there's a closet right above there on the main level. Runs through the corner, so you don't really notice it, and then up into the attic. So it makes feeding new wires a lot easier because I'm constantly running a new Ethernet line for something or a new coax line, so it's been a lot easier to run that through. And I can actually, it's a one-man job now. It was a two-man job, one to kind of push the cabling down in and one to pull from the other side. Now it just is effortless putting it down through that conduit, which really helps. So these wires right here actually run up to the attic, which I will show you in a second, because the attic is where all of our cabling comes together, especially for our IP cameras and for our cable television, so all of our coax runs up there. So let's go upstairs and take a look. All right, so we are gonna head up into the attic, where it is probably about 150 degrees up here. And I really like this ranch style house. When we bought it, I actually didn't look too much into the attic. Here, let's flip one of the lights on here. So I didn't really look too much into the attic, but as I get up here, there's actually access to just about anywhere you need to go. Nice part about a ranch style home, you kind of have access to this area easily. From the garage is where my access is, and you have access to all the wires. So this, I'll show you guys real quick. This is where I was talking about. So these wires right here all run down right to the server rack. So right down into there. I don't have my flashlight with me. But this area is super tight and there was no getting more cables in. So I thought about taking out all of the phone line because we don't use the phone line. I don't think anyone in 15 or 20 years will use them either. So I think everything's obviously going over IP or at least going through your cable modem now. So I could remove all this wire and have more space. But that conduit that I showed you guys is actually over in that corner over there. So you see that I need to do some more cable management. I need to hang these up onto some of these supports, maybe hang them up, but none of these cables run any power. So I'm not too worried about it for right now. Basically all there is coax and a few Ethernet lines, and the power doesn't hit the Ethernet lines until this patch panel right here. So let me bring the light over real quick. So here is my patch panel that I have installed up into the attic. So you'll see up here we've got three Ethernet lines and 2 coax lines. So one of these coax lines actually runs over, and that's my antenna. So super simple. Whiskey is the brand, WSKY, and it was really cheap, about $30, and I get all the channels crystal clear HD just from that one antenna. So that one antenna comes here, comes to the patch panel, and then goes straight down and plugs into that Hoppage USB device that I showed you that plugs into my Plex machine. So, and then anyone in the house can watch live TV. A lot of times people are splitting the signal off of the antenna so that they can use one antenna for multiple TVs. Well, with Plex now, you don't need to do that. You just run it to your Plex machine, and then everyone on whatever device they're on through the network streams whatever channel they want. So obviously you are limited, so that Hoppage tuner only has 2 tuners in it, so only 2 different channels could be watched or recorded at once. But still, you could get more of them, or I think there's some tuners out there with 4 tuners in them, or you could just get 2, however you want to do that. So then the rest of these ports right here are actually running to IP cameras. So I have 2 of them that are in the house, that run, I guess, into the house. The one that you saw in the basement. I have one that's Wi-Fi that watches the backyard, and then 3 that are hardwired in. So they're actually interesting cameras because I thought they were PoE, but they're technically PoE because the only port plugging into the camera is an Ethernet adapter, and it does data and power. But it needs more power than just PoE can supply. And I tried PoE Plus and everything and nothing worked. So I still have these little Y cables, these little injectors, which come down to a power supply right here. So they still need more power, but not a huge deal. I had this in the basement so that all the cameras would be on backup power as well. But the power over, this is just Cat5e wiring. The power over the Cat5e, I think it was too long of a run. The power wasn't staying, I guess, it wasn't powering the camera enough when it was that long of a run. So I took it up here, plugged it into the patch panel, and it worked much better. I will be honest, they're fidgety cameras. They're actually converted over from an old system we had, but I already had them. They were 720p, so they worked out. So this is kind of where everything comes to. This is the hub, and I wanted to make sure I had more ports because, like I said, there'll be access points being put up here, and I would walk over there, but there's really no need to. Really, the conduit just comes up right through there, and that's where all the wires come to. So, oh man, it is like 200 degrees up in this attic. I'm going to get out of here. It is summertime in Nebraska, so it's 95 degrees outside, so I can only imagine what it is up here in the attic. So here is an example of one of those cameras I was telling you about. So you can see it's right there, faces back towards the main door of the house, and it runs up that white plastic tubing, and actually that hole at the top goes straight into the attic right by that conduit that we were talking about. So it goes in there and goes into that patch panel. So again, one of the benefits of being in a ranch style home is that access to the attic is a simple punch through, and then you just fill it in with some of that sealant foam so you don't get any moisture or I guess bugs or anything like that into the attic. And so that is an example of one of the cameras that runs up there. So it's not part of the technical home network, but the big features of the house, since we've hardwired everything, got great Wi-Fi coverage, the other part is the home automation. And the Amazon Echo is one of my favorite devices. We actually have 3 of these throughout the house. We have one here in the kitchen, one in the nursery, and one of our bedroom, because we have hue lights set up throughout the house. So this device, just by using our voice, can control the lighting in our house. And then also, I mean, you guys know about the Amazon Echo, all the other capabilities that it does. But one of the benefits is the one in the nursery. When we are putting my son to sleep, you can walk in and hands-free, you can start playing lullaby music and turn off the lights, all by using your voice. So the kind of the home automation side of things, you know, when you think of having a media server, you have your media side, and then basically having these throughout the house, you can kind of pretty much walk anywhere and control any of the lights with your voice. You can get into bed and say, turn off all the lights, and all the lights you know are off in the house without getting up. So one of the benefits, I guess, of the home automation side is really the voice activation feature. If I had to get out my phone and use the app, it wouldn't be as easy as just using my voice and triggering Alexa. So that is going to wrap up the home network tour for 2017. And hopefully adding some new additions for the next year. Want to get a server in here, do some more virtual machines, play around with some of that stuff more than I have been able to, and see if we can even increase the efficiency in the home network even more. So I guess I didn't mention this. This is just where I access everything. So all the computers that are in this rack have the monitor, mouse, and keyboard. And if I could be down here all the time, I think I would. So I purposely put the paint bucket as the chair. Not very comfortable, makes me get up and not stay down here and tinker and mess with stuff. Because if you guys are like me, and I think if you've watched this video this far in, you are like me, you love tinkering with home networking gear, you love working with, you know, things like pfSense and NAS, and really messing around, seeing the best you can get out of all of your equipment. So I will see you guys in 2018, but until then guys, tech on.